Malcolm X, YZ.
Let's see.
Yo, this cognac
Okay.
kicked me.
Hold on. Waiting for us to be live. It says live on Zoom, but it's still taking a second to get live everywhere else. Okay, Facebook's live, Periscope, YouTube is taking a second. Hey, y'all out there, leave a comment live with the KHive. Hey, Delonte. Delonte says, hey, hey, kings and queens.
Hey,
Yo.
what's up?
What's up, Delonte?
Hey, Matt. Matt says, hey, Sydney. TJ.
Hey, Matt. Woo, woo.
Okay.
Love y'all.
All right.
Kamala is in the building. As per
Hi,
usual.
Selena. Happy Friday.
Happy Friday, everyone.
All right, y'all. Y'all want to get started?
I think we have enough of a crowd in here, matriculated and walked on in.
They gonna come in. I'm about to retweet.
So we finna get started. 3, 2, 1. Yo, what's up, y'all? It's live with the KHive once again. It's your favorite five in the house. Shout out to Heather. Her spirit is with us. She is knee deep in work. Said work is all the way up to her shoulders, girl. Can't even flip her hair right now.
Which is a blessing. A blessing to have work in this environment. Shout out to Heather. I am not hating on you, sis. Get your money.
Certainly is, and so we wish her mental health as much health as her bank account. Now, moving forward, let me go ahead and just reintroduce everybody. For those of you who may not know, about to know, it's your boy in comments, chilling here, formerly known as SJS, always known as that dude. And, I got the red solo cup with the cognac and the cranberry. I am on another level right now, so I just want to try to be prepared because it's kicking in already. Moving on, we have Maya Contreras, one of my favorites to read. I love your work, ma'am. It's so fantastic. How you feeling?
Pretty good. I'm having a little bit of champagne. Well, actually, it's cava. Let's not get too fancy. So I'm ready for this evening, and I'm saying hi to the people that are watching us now. Hello.
Fantastic. You know what I wish I was like drinking right now? That song. I'm drinking rum and Red Bull. See, Reese know that can't come on. Hey, get out the way. Nah, but moving on. Wow. Speaking of Red Bull, guess what, Sid? We're going to you next. Speaking of Red Bull, Sydney.
What up? What up? Yes, it is your girl. I am back. No, the Twitter trolls did not run me off Twitter yet. Hopefully they don't get a chance to, and hopefully I'll continue to thrash. But yes, everybody, what's going on tonight? I am drinking some Grey Goose, some orange juice, and some Red Bull. So we're gonna see what tonight is gonna bring, because this is an interesting concoction I came up with.
You just made it up. You have a name for it?
It's called "Fuck This Coronavirus."
Okay, it's called quarantine juice. That's what that is.
Yes, quarantine juice, like crop juice. Let's go.
Yeah.
Moving forward, we got my man Kenny in the house. What's popping, bro? Going on with you?
Hey, what's up, y'all? I'm back in the saddle again. Short Lord Jesus, as long as y'all will keep me. But no, I ain't drinking on nothing right now. I'm just here, just chilling. And if y'all don't know already, keep it under wraps. Don't tell nobody. But it's too raw, too real. And I'm going to just keep it as that.
Word up. We out on, we on the low. You know, we got to keep that on there. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Police lurking, you feel me? Anyway,
dude, I always get caught. I'm like T.I. with this. I'm always caught with something. Hell yeah.
Word up. We don't let the feds know. We got a fugitive. No U.S. Marshals. And of course, we got Black Women Views. Reese, what it do?
What up, y'all? I'm still sipping on some wine, I'm still sipping on some wine, trying to get my mind right. Cheers.
Fantastic. No, today was definitely a red wine day. It wasn't an old-fashioned day. Just a lot of entanglements to untangle. But we gonna, you know, I had to slip.
Yes, that's a good one. I see what you did there.
We're not gonna go through this hour without mentioning entanglements. Anyway.
I'm very Virgo. I'm very Virgo of both you and her. Okay. Talking about entanglements.
Now, but speaking of what was not entangled, yesterday we had a blast, a ball, mother freaking good time. You feel me? Get Up, Stand Up 2020 was nothing less than a success. Goodness, I just want to thank everybody for those of you who decided to share pictures, for those of you who hashtag tweeted, for those of you who shared videos showing your moves. Appreciate all of you. And I did not realize that we had so many people who are fleet of foot, as they say.
You know what? One of the things I loved is Kamala's chair dancing. Mm-hmm. So I think that we should somebody could give us a melody. Sydney, you sing. Maybe you could give us a little melody. And y'all in the comments, you guys vote with your comment who has the best chair dancing skills. And Kamala's not an option because Kamala's not on here, but y'all tell us. All right, Sydney, come on, give us a beat, give us a melody, something. Let's see who has the best get up, stand up, chair dancing.
Get up, stand up, get up, turn up.
Or if you have a song that is no copyright, because they're gonna snatch this whole video down.
Yeah, that's why I'm like,
yeah, they sure will.
Because anything you sing, child, is like I done already got locked for one today on Twitter. I'm like, they gonna suspend me. I'm like, but anyway,
well, you can sing anything.
Okay, Drew, can you rap? Come on, somebody got some melody or something. Come on.
I'm trying to think.
Even if you do some acapella, that's still fine.
I got one.
No, they won't flag it if it's acapella.
Shout out to Miss Boots herself. Come on, let's get it crunk up on that, fun up on that in this dancery. We got y'all open now, y'all open, so we got to dance. For me, don't need no hateration, holleration in this dancery. Let's get it percolating. While you waiting, so just dance for me. Come on, everybody, get on up. Hey,
come on, y'all. I don't see no votes coming through.
Hey,
who got the best chair dance?
I'm about to feel alright.
Come on with it.
Everybody party with me.
Hey, let loose and body free. Come on. Leave situations at the door so we can step inside, jump
get on the floor. Oh, let's get it crunk up in that.
Let's get crunk up on
this dancery.
Oh. And now you're floating, so you got to dance for me.
We're going to keep going until somebody vote for me, because everybody's saying Kenny.
What are they saying?
I'm looking at the comments. Okay. Somebody said me, so we can stop.
Whatever. I'm going to go back and watch this and see, because she might be lying.
I'm laughing because I'm
Before we get in, I'm just gonna tell y'all the votes. Shit, I didn't get no votes. I could have used the spirits lifting, but I didn't have any votes. So we got Kenny. Kenny got this one. Kenny, Maya Smile. Sydney, wow, amazing voice, Sydney, awesome. Sydney, the true DJ. Kenny, Sydney, Kenny, Reese and Kenny. Okay, I got a little bit of song. Okay.
Yeah,
Sydney wins because she has to sing and dance. Reese. Sydney, tie between Kenny and Reese. I had to extort some votes out of here, so I'm disqualified.
That's okay. So like, you know why? You get all the votes for me because I can't dance.
Oh, well, you people don't agree with that.
Wow, I would have never thought that.
You get some votes. The only person who didn't get any votes though was Drew. I'm sorry, Drew, but somebody said I had the best drink dancer, so thank you. Okay.
First of all, Drew's dance from last night.
Well, Drew got the
Drew got it.
That's the reason why he couldn't win. Because he got the leg work. If he got it and stood up and actually did his leg work, it would have been over for all of them.
Do the cute fish shuffle. Come on with it. Do the cute fish shuffle.
Drew, I saw that video. That was wild.
Hey, I'm gonna tell y'all straight up. I'll be honest with y'all, I wasn't even doing nothing. It just looked good. I was just kind of, just little two-step, you know what I'm saying? What 50 Cent say? You know,
that's that
we don't
that's
how we do it.
The
same two-step with a little twist. That's all it is. You know what I'm saying? Nah, look, we in the club doing the same old two-step. But anywho, no, it was a great event. Great idea, too, just to be able to inspire people to actually want to get involved. I saw a Twitter troll say something about how come they weren't doing the town hall, talking about policy and stuff. Well, because ain't nobody paying $25 to participate in that. Number one, as a fundraiser. But it was great just way to have some fun for us to remain joyful warriors in this time and just remain just inspired, spirited, and encouraged. And so that's what was just going on. Moving right along, though, like it felt like a party. And typically at the party, like, me, you know what I'm saying? You might potentially meet someone, in my perspective, meet, you know, a young lady who may potentially be, you know, girlfriend down the line, wife, baby mama, what have you. But speaking of baby mamas, I do want to get into, when I say baby mamas, we're going to talk about pregnancy. But in any regard, but a serious matter, though, let's jump right into it. Supreme Court there's some bad news here, did decide to uphold a regulation instilled by the Trump administration that lets employers limit women's access to birth control coverage under the ACA based on religious or moral objections. Morals. Trump, same sentence? Yeah, okay. So an estimated, say maybe 126,000 women are projected to lose contraceptive coverage through their employers. Maybe anywhere between maybe 70,000 to 126,000. That's just the initial projection. Decision did end up passing 7-2 on the Supreme Court. Just a reminder why it's so important for people to vote, because Supreme Court justices are important. These are decisions that actually end up governing, unfortunately, your very body. Now, Kamala Harris has been, first off, she let her outrage be known that this had I'm about to say the audacity, but I'll say it had the audacity to pass. But she's actually just been a fierce advocate of women's protections as far as when it comes to their reproductive rights, their physical being. As a matter of fact, during the Brett Kavanaugh confirmation, we all remember it in the hearings, she famously asked him if he could think of a law that governs bodies of men. He couldn't think of one. Matter of fact, neither could I. But, you know, the way I see it, I mean, if you look at it, I don't think there are any that actually govern our bodies, to be honest with you. Not even the draft. You can't even say that, because that doesn't even fall into that category either. So when you look at it that way, it definitely is a little off. But the way I see it, though, I think if moral and religious reasons should dictate if women are able to have access to, or at least have their employers cover their access to contraception, birth control, those things they need for the physical well-being, then those same religious beliefs should also, and moral beliefs should also govern whether or not men have access to Viagra, Cialis. I'm just saying, if your morals and your beliefs tell you that, well, these contraceptive, we're not talking about abortion or anything like that. We're talking about contraception, health reasons for a woman's body. If your beliefs are that these are somehow unnatural, then your belief should also be that, well, guess what? Any type of outside help to get your soldier to stand at attention is also unnatural too. So I need y'all to just relax, to be honest with you, and let's just make it even across the board if we're going to go down that road. If women can't be covered by their employers for basic contraception and birth control, and in that regard, men shouldn't be covered by their employers for those little blue pills. All right, the only pills you need to be taking, the Tic Tacs, and y'all can stay limp like a pimp walking down the street. You feel that? Anyway, you know what I'm saying. But we're gonna go ahead and get that on. I'm sorry, I really wanted to get my mind out in that. But again, Kamala Harris again, very active against that type of those draconian type of policies and stuff. And there will be a change. We show up in November. We get this out of here. We're gonna take care of it there. But also moving on, when it gets to COVID and the economics.
Hey, Drew, Maya wanted to chime in on that one.
Oh, Maya, my girl, go ahead, jump in. I thought you was clapping.
I was clapping because what you said was great. I just want to say really quickly that one of the things, and I know Kamala Harris has talked about this too, birth control is not just to prevent pregnancy. And I think people forget that. It actually helps prevent some uterine cancers. It reduces the risk of ovarian cysts. It makes periods less painful. It helps with acne. It helps with endometriosis, which is a painful condition that a lot of people with uteruses contain. So to me, I don't want people, when they're thinking about this birth control issue, to think about it, because this is how the Supreme Court is trying to frame it. I wish I could pull up an interview where Kamala Harris was discussing the kind of different other additional aspects of it. But this is purely based in like purity standards that are hypocritical when they're supporting a president that has impregnated multiple women inside and outside of wedlock, and so it's not real. Okay, so when people are talking about the discussions of birth control, I want them to understand that there are multiple things that birth control is used for. It is not just for the control of birth. That's all I want to add. Thank you.
I'm glad you did. I'm glad you did. I'm glad you mentioned that, because I was educated on that like 4 years ago or something like that. So I was like, well, actually, no, this didn't. Like, really? Wow. What else in there? So that's definitely important, man. Yeah, we gotta vote, man. Please vote. Please be registered. Please, God, just get somebody to vote. This is stupid, yo. Unless we're gonna make it even across the board, hey, then don't cover Viagra. Then, hey, listen, then we all suffer together, and at least we can say it's fair. All right. So look, in any regard, there'll be some very disappointed wives. Moving on, COVID and economics. As far as we have the when it moves to COVID and business aspects, as far as Save Our Streets, Monthly Economic Support Act, Racial and Ethnic Disparities. I knew someone wanted to chime in on that as it related to COVID, because I know we want to talk. But Reese, that was you, right? I thought that was. I was like, why am I thinking Heather? I was talking to Heather. I'm sorry, Heather, if you're watching. I was thinking about you because I talked to you after me dancing. Sorry, Reese. I know you wanted to mention that. Sorry.
Yes, actually, though, I do want to take a quick second, because there are a lot of really good comments about this birth control issue. Piggybacking off of what Maya said. We have a person who says, and let me just see. I won't use names in this particular one, but it's medicine for other purposes. Period pain limits a lot of women in the workforce. That's another implication of birth control, helping alleviate some of that. And at the same time, they don't let maternity leave be where it should be. That's another great point. You know, you want to force people to have babies, but then you don't have maternity leave options available for these women that are having these babies. Hello. And then menopause for women like me, mid-40s, early menopause, fibroids, and recurring. That's another way that birth control is used. And another person is, I got my first mammogram as a teenager from Planned Parenthood, which led to the discovery of a lung condition I had at 15 years old. Planned Parenthood is necessary. So that was, somebody had made a comment about how this kind of stuff can lead to restricting funding for Planned Parenthood. We know that's under assault by this administration and the Republicans. And then one last comment, menstrual cycles that cause anemia. So there, like Maya pointed out, there's a lot of reasons for birth control outside of contraception, and it's a topic that clearly, based on the comments, that a lot of people feel strongly about, and women, and it impacts people of color and lower income women disproportionately when any kind of assault on reproductive rights happens. So, but to turn the conversation to COVID-19, obviously COVID-19 is ravaging the country. These numbers that we're seeing across the country are astronomical, with very little intervention appears to be happening, particularly by these red state governors. So of course, it's another good time to, bring up the fact that Senator Kamala Harris is really on the forefront of this fight as it relates to COVID-19, with a slew of legislation, not just ideas, but actually legislation in the Congress. We know that Mitch McConnell is an obstructionist, but it's still important to note what kind of solutions would be out there under a Democratic Congress, for instance, or under Joe Biden with Kamala Harris administration. And so I'll just go quickly down the list. Today, Senator Kamala Harris tweeted about the fact that 32% of Americans missed their July housing payment. That is an astronomical number. And so Kamala Harris has proposed the Monthly Economic Crisis Support Act, which is $2,000 a month plus $2,000 per child up to 3 children, subject to certain income limits throughout the course of this pandemic and 3 months afterwards. So it's essentially like a universal guaranteed income. So that's something that would absolutely get right to the heart of that. We know that Mitch McConnell and the Republicans do not have an appetite to increase or to reauthorize the $600 a month or $600 a week unemployment insurance. Now that they've gotten their trillions of dollars for corporations, they are leaving Americans out to dry that are unemployed. We still have massive unemployment in this country. Also, Senator Kamala Harris tweeted earlier this week about how 440,000 Black businesses are in danger of going out of business as a result of this COVID-19 pandemic. She has her Save Our Street Act. It's a bicameral legislation with Congresswoman Ayanna Pressley. And that actually provides grants, not loans, but grants to micro businesses, and particularly targeting people of color, minority-owned small businesses. And those, the fact that it's a grant makes it easier. With this Paycheck Protection Program, we saw the people like Kanye West, we saw the Roman Catholic Church, or the Catholic Church, got over $1 billion in aid. We've seen Jared Kushner and all of these Republicans and all of these large corporations get millions and millions of dollars in our taxpayer dollars to combat them, but not over 90% of Black business owners did not get anything from the Paycheck Protection Program. So, and it's not just Black, but it's also Latino, and it's the Native American community. And so there are so many ways of how this is impacting our community disproportionately, which brings me to the Racial and Ethnic Disparities Task Force. And that's a task force that Senator Kamala Harris wants to establish with FEMA, that not only requires that we collect data about how this COVID-19 is impacting various communities, but actually ensures that recommendations and resources are put towards these communities. It's not enough just to say, oh, look over there, all those Black people are dying. You need to have an actual response. So that is the difference between Senator Kamala Harris's legislation, the Racial and Ethnic Disparities Task Force, and other legislation that's just all about, oh, we want to collect this data. And then one last thing I want to mention is Betsy DeVos. I don't know if you guys have noticed, and Donald Trump are on this crusade to have schools reopen. So there are 2 points I want to make. One point is about how the Trump administration has moved or attempted to move such that if you are an immigrant and you are here on a student visa, if your program is going online, you have to leave the country. You cannot stay in America as if your program goes online. So Senator Kamala Harris teamed up with Senator Dianne Feinstein to push back on that rule and, try to pressure the Trump administration to reverse that rule. And then again, going back to Betsy DeVos, where her and Trump are trying to withhold funding from schools that do not reopen, which is dangerous. And Senator Kamala Harris is pushing back on that as well. But the reason why I wanted to highlight that is because one of the things that Senator Kamala Harris talked about early in this pandemic was about two things. Number one, how you have a lot of people of color who don't have the same access to broadband and things like that. So that we're impacted in that way. But what really has always struck me is how Senator Kamala Harris has talked about how pre-existing conditions, which are a result not of personal responsibility, but things like environmental racism and systemic racism. We have our water is more polluted, our air is more polluted in our communities and things like that. And so to me, when I look at these statistics that we have, it's supposed to not be that deadly or not even be that serious for younger people, which I don't buy, but that's what they try to say. But where we have seen children die, the pictures that I've seen and the children that I've seen die have mostly been little Black kids or little Latino kids. And so there's no doubt in my mind that when Betsy DeVos and, people like Trump and there's some other people that are pushing this, say, let's reopen the schools, they're willing to sacrifice the Black kids that have asthma, because as Senator Kamala Harris has pointed out, asthma is much more frequent in Black communities and Latino communities because of things like air pollution. And so they're willing to sacrifice our children and have those children bring COVID back to our households, where then the whole family gets infected with COVID and people die because they don't think that this is something that impacts white children. So all of these things come together to really demonstrate how Senator Kamala Harris understands that it's not enough to just simply tackle the issue at face value. You have to also look at the underlying conditions. You have to look at the disproportionate impacts for people of color, for lower income people, and all facets of it. She always has an intersectional approach, and she always has the solutions. So that's what I wanted to say about COVID. As we're focusing on it this week, we have to know where the solutions are. Last thing Kamala Harris said on Lawrence O'Donnell last night, we have the solutions. Kamala has the solution. So if you want to know how to tackle a problem, the first place you should probably be going to is harris.senate.gov, because I can almost guarantee you that she's tackled it. Or you can go to my Medium post Credentials, not cosmetics, the case for Kamala Harris, because that's 20 sections that detail how Kamala Harris has solutions, receipts, and accomplishments in every single category you can think of.
Hey man, I'm glad you plugged that Medium post. Thank you for gotta keep plugging it, absolutely. But yeah, like you said, she has tackled pretty much everything you can think of. If you haven't thought of it, or if it has been thought of, it's been thought of by her. We can definitely say that. Moving to the other part that we can think of, which we were talking about in neighborhoods, obviously the air is affected. The Water for Tomorrow, Water Justice Act, as well by Kamala Harris. Actually, I know who wanted to speak on that. I know. Who was Sid? It was Sid. Sid, so when it comes
to
water,
my bad. Oh my gosh, I could not. My mute button was stuck. I am so fucking sorry about that. That was a technical difficulty. Yes, we are talking about the Water Justice Act. Awesome. Yes, it is time. All right. So tonight we're going to well, first of all, I want to start this segment off by shouting out someone who is really important. Y'all know I'm y'all local Midwest girl. Okay, you're Black girl from the Midwest up in here. I'm the local one. But there are a lot of us out here in the Midwest that are doing phenomenal things. And I wanted to shout out a very special young Black girl from the Midwest. Her name is Mari Coakley. If you guys are not aware of who she is, her name is Little Miss Flint on Twitter. She is an activist. She's a child activist. And Little Miss Flint just turned 13, y'all. Shout out to her. She just turned 13 last week. So it's her 13th birthday. She's officially a teenager. But a little bit of back history about Mari Coakley. She has been fighting for water justice her entire life, unfortunately, since she was about 4 years old. I can remember seeing her on my timeline about 7 years ago. And she was one of the first in the front of the line. Her and her mother and her siblings were some of the first one of the first families that I saw from Flint. That were getting involved with the Flint water crisis. And for those of you who are not aware of what that is, y'all can go look that up. But there was a water crisis in Flint, Michigan that has extended for years now. And Flint, unfortunately, still does not have clean water. So Mari is raising funds. She's also accepting birthday cards. So I'll have all of that information. Y'all can follow me on Twitter. It's actually the Sydney A _. And the underscore is after the full name. And I'll have information. So if you guys want to send her birthday cards, if y'all want to donate to her causes, she is phenomenal and she's such a sweetheart. And that just I just want to segue into why I brought that up, because Senator Kamala Harris introduced legislation recently within like the last 2 weeks to ensure the nation's or national water sustainability through her Water for Tomorrow Act. So what we're seeing here is we're seeing that Kamala has this problem front of mind. We all witnessed, if you weren't aware, you guys can read up on it. But for those of us who witnessed the Flint water crisis in real time, we saw how the local government played a role in Flint, Michigan, in exasperating this particular crisis, and causing a lot of pain and strife and illness for the residents of Flint, Michigan, which is I believe Flint is about 98% Black, if I'm not mistaken, and maybe 96%. But either way, we saw in real time what can happen to a very, to a pretty, I would say a mid-sized community of maybe no more than like 500,000 people. Flint is a very small city in Michigan. It's a powerhouse though. And Flint was oh, yep, you know what? Perfect. So we've got actual stats. So Black and African Americans in Flint is 53%. Thank you so much, Maya, for that. White is 37%. More races, non-Hispanic, 3.97%. Hispanic is going to be 2.41%, and so on and so forth. So we can see, obviously, that majority, over 50% of the population of Flint, my apologies for being off there, is predominantly Black. So this is considered a predominantly Black community, which made it such a prolific event, in my opinion, just because we we hear stories about environmental racism playing out in, you know, in the form of like smog, or, you know, electrical units being placed in specific neighborhoods for a specific reason. We have those in ethnic neighborhoods here in Chicago. But the unique thing about the Flint water crisis was we saw the government fail, local government fail its constituents in real time. And that's what the Water for Tomorrow Act is looking to avoid in the future. And that's why, and I'll break down a little bit of what this basically means. It's legislation that ensures that the nation's water supply is safe and sustainable. The threat of climate change, which has a disproportionate impact on low-income communities and communities of color, like Flint, which are actually both, will continue to intensify water scarcity and extreme weather conditions. So, again, when we're talking about climate justice, when we're talking about justice for Black people, Black Lives Mattering, you know, our health and our prosperity is also included in that package. And that's where Kamala Harris comes into play with her, again, unique lens on these particular details that often get, you know, unless we make noise, they kind of get, you know, pushed off to the side because it's one of those, oh my God scenarios that it could never happen to me until it happens to me, you know, type. And so Kamala is obviously very vocal about this, just as Mari Copney, just as others who are experiencing water scarcity throughout the United States. That's not just an issue with Flint. We've also had issues here in Chicago with lead in our water. I mean, every year they're changing out piping in the city of Chicago, Philly, New York. I've seen it all over the country because Flint kind of put the fire or the microscope on the issue of crumbling infrastructure here in the United States. And when infrastructure crumbles, the most marginalized, most segregated, most vulnerable communities are the first ones who bear the burden of those failures. And we see that happening right now in real time, not just with the Flint water crisis, but with the COVID-19 pandemic. So again, this is really, really awesome legislation coming from Kamala Harris. We can see that, you know, she is focused on the future of health and wellness for marginalized communities. And that doesn't just include pandemic, awareness and pandemic and pandemic response, but also water safety and climate safety. And bringing awareness to the issue of climate change that is happening across the world. We've seen protesters getting involved in the UK, in Africa, all over Europe, and this is a global effort to stop this eroding of our natural resources. And I, for one, think that is really a phenomenal initiative. It was a small one, but I'm an indie storm chaser, and that really, really stuck out to me. So that's Kamala's always busy, always.
No, I'm glad you mentioned that. I was actually looking up some statistics when it came to Flint. Because the main thing is, we were in 2020. This took place, I think it was in 2014 when we realized the water fiasco 6 years ago. And the question is, why is it taking so long? Like, I live in LA. I'm 20 minutes away from Beverly Hills. If this happened in Beverly Hills, I promise you, it would have been fixed in a weekend. Like they would have stood for it. It wouldn't have been no years and all this. No, they would have took care of that. Maybe the week at the longest. Let's say a national crisis that matters. A week at the longest, but it would have been done overnight. But what I noticed is that I just want to read this really quickly. So, as a city, Flint's lead levels have actually tested well below the federal action level of 15 parts per billion since 2017.
That's beautiful.
And the latest test results from January 2018 found 4 parts per billion in the 90th percentile of the highest risk homes. So basically, if you were to compare that at the height of the crisis, those homes were testing at 20 parts per billion on average. As a result of the crisis, right, Flint's water system has become one of the most closely monitored in the country, and they have this new lead copper rule, which really means that The weekly monitoring of lead and copper is actually in the
Good.
water. It means that Michigan now has the strictest water standards in the nation. However, there's still distrust, and there should be, like literally, even though they switch back and all of that, folks now are distrustful of the actual government, and the actual health of the water there. So it's these are residual effects, and they're going to continue to go. And I'll be honest with you, if I'm in Flint, I wouldn't trust the government either, the local government either. Even though as a state, Michigan has these tough regulations now, obviously because of that, but still they sat and let this fester and fester. Didn't tell anyone. So that's man, everything is bad. No, let me not say that. I'll draw it back. Everything is not bad in Flint. No, there are good people. Like you said, Little Miss Flint is like fighting a good fight, raising awareness, paying attention. There's still good people in that particular city. I even saw it, but they were facing other things too. There's financial issues in Flint as well. The police department has an actual documentary on Netflix. I'm glad they shot that out. Shout out to Flint Town on Netflix. If you have not watched that, please do. We're talking about defund the police without, not in the way that we're talking here, but actually just taking resources for a reason. Watch that documentary. But yeah, was there any other reaction? Anyone else? Anything to say on the matter? All right, we're gonna move on. It's time for our new and wonderful segment called "Setting the Record Straight." So when it comes to Kamala Harris, we need to go ahead and set the record straight because people feel the need to crookify the record, and that's not even a word that's made that up. But they made up what they said about her, so I can make up a word for what they were doing. They were crookifying. And a lot of people have been hoodwinked and bamboozled when it comes to her record. So, Kenny, please, let's set the record straight, my brother.
All right, so I'm here to set the record. You know what? Oh my God, I love you, Sydney. Lord Jesus, what would we do without you, child?
Okay. DJ, what y'all expect me to do? Not have no flex bombs? Come on now.
Child, okay, let me get into it because
fuck Master Flex night.
We still lit after last night, child. We getting up, standing up, and we actually standing up to all y'all lies, okay, about Kamala Harris. All right, so let's get into it. So, everybody, I love to see that a lot of people like to quote Miss Tulsi Gabbard, the Gabbage, or Lord Gabbard. How do you say her last name? Whatever, child. Y'all know who I'm talking about, child. However, I love how people like to quote her, saying that, Kamala Harris locked up and broke state records locking up Black people for marijuana. Well, the funny thing about that is it just doesn't exist. It's just never happened. And quoting, since a lot of people didn't do any fact checking behind this, quoting Mercury News during Tulsi Gabbard, whatever y'all know who I'm talking about. During Tulsi, she blasted Kamala Harris over marijuana convictions, saying she put over 1,500 people in jail for marijuana violations. Then laughed about it when she was asked if she ever smoked marijuana. Unfortunately, and this is what you guys need to do, you need to learn how to read articles. It says Gabbard was very misleading, citing figures of all California while Kamala Harris was Attorney General, even though the vast majority of marijuana cases in those states were prosecuted by independent elected district attorneys. So it's very important to read. And I just want to go ahead and just get on this. So one thing that she forgot to mention is when Kamala Harris was Attorney General, the admissions that she had when she first was elected was 817. Throughout her last year, the marijuana admissions dropped at a very low rate of 137. And during her tenure as DA, compared to her, previous, I think it was, Terrence Hallinan, only 45 people were ever sentenced to state prisons for marijuana during her tenure as DA of San Francisco, compared to Hallinan, who was noted as a very progressive DA. His was 135 were actually arrested in his 8 years of tenure, compared to Kamala Harris's 7 years of tenure. So that's a free fall if you want to look at the data.
I think you said arrested, but I think you meant sentenced to state prison, right?
Well, sentenced, yeah, thank you. Sorry, it was actually sentenced. So, but here's the other thing that I want to talk about as it pertains to Kamala Harris when it comes to these arrests, because the data doesn't show that. During her tenure, now I want y'all to look at this when it comes to the incarcerations of marijuana. Now, and I only quoted from 2010 to 2015 because 2016 technically Prop 64 passed, so I don't want to even include that, you know. So we're just going to talk about the years that she was actually working before any legislation was actually passed. So,
yeah, but just to point out though, that proposition did not go into effect until 2018, where it legalized marijuana. So even though it passed in 2016, it was another 2 years before it went into effect.
Well, yeah, thank you for that, Reese. So I just wanted to just, you know, put that out there. So this is just data while she was actually in office. So the estimated hold on, let me see. Let me go to this data real quick. Give me 2 seconds. Okay. So the estimated people that were convicted was 2,139 were sentenced or jailed for marijuana only offenses for, hold on, I'm actually looking at the wrong one. Hold on, give me 2 seconds. Sorry, y'all gotta bear with me because I'm trying to read this data real quick.
That's what we do, we live. Right? Now you're pulling up the
Can I just interject while you're finding it? So this is the thing that people need to understand about civics. Kenny already pointed out, prosecutors, local elected DAs are the ones who prosecute drug crimes, not the attorney general. Saying that Kamala Harris locked people up for weed is like saying Eric Holder locked people up for weed for anybody who went at the federal level. The attorney general is an executive. They're not a person who's prosecuting individual cases. And even though the Department of Justice handles appeals cases, the actual attorney general is not the person that's in the courtroom. She's not a case manager. So I think people really don't understand that. Another thing that people don't understand is that as a district attorney, she's not responsible for arrests. Cops make arrests, okay? Exactly. So people like to point to arrest data and say, oh, that's Kamala Harris. No, Kamala Harris does not arrest people. She was a district attorney. And there were very, very, very strong and archaic drug laws on the books while she was district attorney. You could get 20 years in prison for 2 grams of crack. That's the size of 2 sugar packets. And so that's where Kamala's Back on Track program came in. But I think I just wanted to point that out. DAs don't arrest people, especially not for weed, and attorney generals do not prosecute drug cases. That's what prosecutors do. They don't have to call up Kamala and say, hey, can I do that? They're completely empowered at their level to make those prosecutions.
Exactly.
Imagine having a little crack on you and then just going to jail for life and you got a rock that's about this big. That's the most tragic thing I've ever heard in my life.
I mean, that's
you're just trying to get like four.
Especially since people like Aaron Sorkin, who's a film director, got caught with a brick of cocaine at the airport, passed out, and he keeps making movies like Social Network. So
I think if you have enough money, you can
Kamala
get away
says,
with it.
Two systems of justice. 2 systems of justice right there.
Well, I never heard that story. Wow.
Give it a Google. It's hilariously annoying because he was just fine. I think he just passed out and he was like, oh God, I was fine. So.
Well, anyways, from 2010 to 2015, the marijuana incarceration rate decreased by 21%. And even though the disparities for African Americans were higher, being the fact that we made up 24% of the population for marijuana, but the disparities, thanks to under Kamala Harris's record, actually decreased. And the data that shows between 2012 actually shows that 2012 to 2014 literally actually decreased. Give me 2 seconds. I know I'm trying to pull up all this dang data. It's ridiculous. Okay, so from 2012 for Black people, actually Kamala Harris was actually able to decrease it from 31% from 2012 to 2014 to 24%. So that's a decrease for disparities for African Americans. So for you guys to say that Kamala Harris locked up Black people, it just doesn't show in the data. Every year during her tenure, there was a decline for incarceration for marijuana possession, especially as it pertains to Black people. So all of that stuff is just false.
It's the big cap. Say. Also, gonna throw another stat in there. In the state of California, we have about 1 million arrests per year. So in that time frame, talking from 2010, you said 2015. you're looking at roughly 5 million arrests total. So literally, that even the numbers themselves are so minuscule in the state of 40 million people that we have here. So when you look at everything in perspective, even if I were, you know what, here's an interesting stats when I looked it up. Let's say I was like in the world of make believe. I was like, okay, let's pretend that the AG actually did like prosecute marijuana cases, and I want to pretend that told you, okay, let's say in the make believe if it was 1,500, even though there's no data to back it up. I was like, yo, that means that 1,500 people out of 5 million. I'm like, dog, that still makes her look good, like compared to everybody else in the state, if your magic thing was true. So either way, but people just looked at numbers and they didn't put things into context. They didn't care about the truth. But that's why we set the record straight.
Well, that's the perception of it, and that's the bad thing when it comes to numbers. Yeah, the 1,500 people does look, crazy when somebody says 1,500 people, but a lot of people weren't looking at the mere fact that, oh, this is California, and being the fact that she was literally running the largest Department of Justice, only second to the United States Department of Justice, with over 5,000 employees. It's minuscule. And I think that's why we have this live with the KHive, why we have to correct the record when it's actually up there. Because California isn't the highest when it comes to the, incarceration rate when it comes to African Americans. There are a lot of other, places like Vermont, but I ain't gonna say no names, but like Vermont that are a little bit higher. They're third in the nation, by the way. But we'll keep it moving and we'll keep it cute. That's all I had to say. Kamala Harris did not
What's
lock up.
Massachusetts stats?
You know what? That's a good question.
So that is a good question. I think I'm going to look that up after the show. No, but honestly, you're honestly right.
Send them to me on Twitter.
Okay. We finally look it up, but I knew though, like again, the arrests, the entire picture in context, threw numbers out arbitrarily, didn't look up anything, and it's just like, yo. The other thing about it is that attorney generals don't get to just go in there and do what the hell they want to do. That's not how it works. Like literally, we're in a country full of checks and balances. I don't care if you are the head of the Department of Justice. There's still things that you can't do, even if your personal convictions or how you feel doesn't mean that, well, I feel this way, I'm going to go ahead and just say F the law. I'm going to make this decision here. Like literally, because here's the problem, people wanted her to do that. Like literally jump in there and have this totalitarian mindset of I'm going to just forget the law and all the rules in place and just going to go and just no more of this and that. And it's like, well, no, you can't do that. They don't have the power to do that. Because if they did, that means a person with ill intent, let's say Trump supporting AG or whatever, go in there and do the opposite and start locking, like you getting like 15 years for a nickel bag. So let's just keep that in mind. Moving on, only obviously that people getting that time to look like us. But anyway, moving on. When it comes to the Vote Safe Act and the Vote Latino Act, Maya, I know you want to weigh in on this one. Please, I'm looking forward to it. My popcorn ready.
Well, there's no Vote Latino Act, unfortunately, right. but I hear what you're saying though. There should be across the board. This week, Kamala Harris had a really great conversation with Maria Teresa Kumar. She's the president of Voter Latino, and they were talking about what it's going to be like to be voting in 2020. They were talking about a bit of obstacles and what's truly on the ballot. And she was speaking to Maria because her organization is actually really fabulous. It's been around for 15 years. This year alone, since March, they've registered 200,000 Latinx voters, which is fabulous. Their goal is to register 500,000 voters. The Latinx community will have the largest voting bloc for, I'd say, marginalized people. I'm tired of this term. We're going to discuss that later. And Black Americans are 30 million. Latinx is 32 million. So we have 30 million, 32 million. Hello, that's as many Democrats voted in total in 2016. Game changer. We're the game changer, right? So one of the things that Kamala was talking about was the fact that this election is critical, and what's going to be decided are things like the DREAM Act. And this is what she was talking about Maria. In that spirit, I want to say that to plug some civic, I will say my civic obligation of what I will be doing on July 27th. this month, which is a Monday, I'm going to do an all-day filibuster live online streaming. And in the spirit of Kamala Harris, who says justice is on the ballot. Well, yeah, justice is on the ballot. Everything's on the ballot, literally everything. So I'm going to be talking about some of the obstacles. Listen, before I get to that, the reason why I talk about the Vote Safe Act is because this act, along with John Lewis's, John Lewis had a wonderful act as well. Those two acts would completely make sure that every eligible American could vote right away. And to me, none of that's going to happen if we don't flip the Senate, keep the House, and win the White House. And this is why Kamala Harris was speaking to Maria, because she was saying, listen, these things need to get passed. Mitch McConnell's going to try to do everything he can to make sure that that doesn't happen before the election year. So part of my filibuster, Maya Buster, no, it's not a good name. Kenny, maybe you can help me with a better name. Drew, you're a wordsman. Maybe you can help me with a better name. But on that day, I want to talk about, it's going to be a fundraiser as well all day. I'm going to be fundraising for the most vulnerable House seats. I put together an Act Blue, Act Blue, where it's just the vulnerable House seats. Right now, Lucy McBath is vulnerable. I would say Lauren Underwood isn't as vulnerable, but she is in a position that's being challenged by Republicans. So I've put together a list of that. I put together a list of all the senators that are running to fundraise. I've already put together a list of Black women that are running for state legislatures, because I want people to understand that it's critical to win Congress. It's critical to win the White House, but state legislatures are going to make lots of massive decisions this year, including redistricting. It's going to be such a critical year. So I'm going to be talking about that for, 4 hours, 14 hours, depends on how much money I raise. I'm going to be talking that day. Maybe I'll have special guests. Maybe some of these people will jump in and say some things, right? Maybe I can persuade them to do that. There you go. Because I just want people, I just want people to understand that this election, everything is on the ballot. All the wonderful things that Kamala Harris talks about, all the amazing policies that she's proposing, this cannot happen if we don't have Congress. And it can't happen if we don't have the White House. Yes, yay! All right, I did it. And see, that's called public. I will be there. That's called public pressure, people. You see, you put people on the spot, you get some stuff. You never know.
No pressure needed. I got you. I got you.
Yay! Thank you.
I want to say, Lauren Underwood, just a little bit of update on her campaign, because I'm getting like buzz from her people. She's in my dad's district. Lauren Underwood, we need to just throw her a few coins. She is, like you said, she's pretty safe right now. She's doing really, really good work in her district. Like, I mean, phenomenal. Kane County loves her. Aurora, shout out to Aurora, St. Charles, all the west suburbs. Y'all know you out west, Illinois. Y'all know where y'all at. And
my brother lives there too. She's my brother. She's his rep. I know. Like he brought the kids. He brought the kids out door to door. They couldn't resist. They were so. I'm with you. So that'd be great. I told my dad I wanted to come up there because I pressured him. I was like, "Did y'all vote? Did y'all vote for Lauren?" And he was like, "Yeah, we got it." So Lauren Underwood is a prime example of somebody that could really benefit from this. So I will definitely be there. I'll be donating to Lauren Underwood. I'll be donating to others. Let's get the word out. I'm excited. Let's do it. And I will say, the last thing I'll say is I purposely picked that Monday because it'll be 99 days before election day. I would do it 100 days. That's a Sunday. You know how people on Sunday just can't deal, really. So, or they got church time, or they got private family time. But I want to do Monday, and then I think Reese you were talking about this. You were like, why are there so many primaries still until August? I think I saw you post that. So we got to make people aware that we still have primaries through August. And so it'll be a day to start getting people on the same page of what is coming up and get people understanding who is running, who needs to be supported. I mean, we can look at the Cook political report and say, oh, this, some of this looks really good. However, the last thing I will say, I promise, is I'm sure you all saw that some ballots in Georgia got tossed out again during the primary. There was so I want to talk
Look at
about
Kitty.
I want to talk about strategies on how we're going to overcome that and make sure that we can lessen that from happening, from getting your ballot the first day it's available to sending it out on the same day, finding alternative polling locations. We're a solution-oriented panel, and that's what we're gonna do on that day too. Okay, that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Maya,
I'm
somebody
excited.
had a question. Where are you going to be live streaming? Is it on your Twitter, or are you going to be
That's
on
a
multiple
good question.
platforms?
I will be simulcasting on Twitter, on Facebook, it will be on YouTube, and it will be on IG. It's strange with IG because I have to do that separately. Like I'll have my I'll have my other computer like next to me simulcasting.
Oh, Maya got money.
What time are you going live?
What? She got 2 MacBooks and she lives in New York, girl. What?
In-laws. My in-laws
Go.
taught me this. Yeah.
Oh, okay. She's like, okay, don't y'all be counting my coins,
Not
okay?
only can she afford an apartment in New York City, but she got not one but 2 MacBooks. Okay, look, go.
Ooh.
Okay, come on now.
But
Come
what
with
time will it be airing though?
So I'm actually going to start right away in the morning, and I really am going to go all day. I'll most likely go from 10 in the morning till midnight or whatever it takes. I really want to make it like a filibuster. And if some of the Doug Hive wants to drop in, hi Doug. If you guys want to jump in, that's fine. I'm going to be taking special guests. The ones that are special guests will get a link, a DM, so they can jump in and things like that. But it'll start at 10 in the morning. There'll be a recap at the end of each hour. I've really organized this.
Oh wow!
I'm excited.
I'm such a nerd,
I love it.
But I've got links. I've got everything for you all. It's really weird how excited I am about this. I have links for everything. You'll know what your early voting is. You'll know how to get your absentee ballot. You'll know the difference between the absentee ballot and vote by mail. You're gonna be so equipped that you're gonna be able to tell everybody everything.
I might be casting an
all right,
absentee ballot.
I might chime in and ask you all the average voter questions. I'm so out of the loop kind of questions. So I'm gonna probably see if I can ask all my friends what they want to know about voting.
If I pass out, Reese can take over as I pass out. She'll be like, I got that.
So when you say
got a comfortable chair,
in my head,
what?
Like in my head, I'm thinking Mr. Smith goes to Washington, and anytime I hear that, and so he held on for a good time before he passed out. So I
can do it. My husband has said it's really going to be all day. I said, yeah, it's going to be really all day. So if I disappear for a second, somebody else will be, if I have to get some coffee or something like that.
Yeah.
But it will be all day. And the reason why I wanted to do it all day is because I really wanted people to see how critical. I know people are stressed out. They're worried about their kids. They're worried about their grandma. They're worried about their cousins right now. It's such a stressful time period. It's hard to focus. Trump pardoned Roger Stone tonight. There's always this just garbage every second of the day. So I want people to get, I guess, their head in the game about what's coming up and how there could be relief, after that 99 days, and say, let's keep our eyes on the prize here. 99 days, we can get this. We can get this done. And a lot of people don't realize that 30 days before the election happens in a lot of states, that's the last day they can register to vote. They find out too late. You've only got a couple of states where you can just walk in and register on the same day. There's a couple of states it's 15 days before. There's no uniformity about it. So that's what will be happening all day. And Reese, I will hand you the list beforehand. So then, we're organized. You see this. This is how we do this. Okay.
I'm excited. Whatever you need, I got you.
Thank you. And that's it. That's what I'm done.
Well, look, I definitely tune in as long as I'm not in any entanglements. I definitely will go ahead and tune in and pay attention. I got entanglements in for a second time. I'm so proud of myself.
Lord Jesus.
Hey man, look, it's an entanglement day. Look, moving forward, Kenny, and actually everybody on the panel here, but it appears the presumptive Democrat, or the Democratic nominee, Mr. Joe Biden, needs an army.
He needs some help, child. He needs some help. All right. So according to the Associated Press, this is Joe Biden's campaign is trying to develop a social media force that can compete with President Trump's well-established digital army of meme makers and political influencers. So, I mean, I feel that there's only one army that's actually, lasted the test of time. We've been through, a few trolls. We've been through a few, fan bases, and we've already handled MAGA from what we've seen, and we've helped Joe Biden through so far. We haven't given him I don't think that we went as hard as we could. I just feel that if he incentivizes us and picks a particular woman by the name of Kamala Harris as his running mate, I feel that he would have the full arsenal that is the KHive, because I have memes ready. I have gifts made. I have a whole lot of Photoshop, child. Y'all haven't even seen what's on this tablet, okay? So I just want y'all to understand that there is no force like the KHive. And you will also have full access to live with the KHive, to where we'll actually be able to, block off misinformation. We would be still going live every day, advocating for him and Kamala Harris on that ticket. And I don't see why there wouldn't be a reason at this point why he wouldn't pick Kamala Harris and also pick the KHive army as, that force for himself. Being the fact that, everybody was literally just there last night, with the Get Up, Stand Up. We're joyful warriors. Now, we can be very joyful until we feel a little attacked, or we feel like we have to, until you come for ours. So I feel that it's important right now for him to really make that decision, because there is no other force like us. A lot of stands also understand that we're not the ones to play with, and we come with receipts, facts, data, and we will check you where you stand. And we do not stand complicit to anything and any misinformation whatsoever. What do y'all think?
Go ahead, Reese.
I completely agree, Kenny. I think right now people focus, first of all, Kamala Harris is the most vetted and simultaneously least vetted person, because what she's vetted on is the same lies regurgitated over and over again, yet her actual record is not very much publicized, because there aren't a lot of people like us who have taken an interest in actually getting the right information out there. But even still, even with the deluge of negativity towards Kamala Harris, here she stands with very high favorables. Her unfavorables are lower than some other people. I won't even name them, but she has still come out completely unscathed from all of this stuff. And Joe Biden, he's hiring, people on his staff to take care of the digital side and the social media side. But here's the thing: you cannot buy enthusiasm. You cannot buy loyalty, and you cannot buy the kind of social media army. Bloomberg tried to do it, and it wasn't successful. Even though Joe Biden is running ahead in terms of Hillary Clinton's numbers with white voters, he is lagging behind with Latino voters and with Black voters specifically. So there is a lack of enthusiasm there. I know people don't like to acknowledge that, but it's just the truth. And when you have an event like Get Up, Stand Up, which was trending, I think I mentioned earlier, in the top 5 with more tweets than even 4 of the top 5, or 3 of the top 5, because it was in the top 5, and then Goya. I mean, you can't compete with the CEO of Goya disappointing everybody, but having to cancel their favorite seasonings. Everybody loves Saison. But outside of that, that kind of enthusiasm and that kind of joy cannot be bought. And they don't have enough money to buy it, even if they tried. And so you cannot underestimate that. There are people who are qualified, not in my opinion as qualified as Kamala Harris, but there are not people that come with that level of engagement, that level of cool factor that Kamala Harris comes with the KHive. And yes, some people have their complaints with the KHive. That's because you were probably lying on Kamala Harris. And so it is what it is with that. But let's be clear. Joe Biden does not have to just deal with the MAGA people. He has to deal with Rose Twitter, okay? And all up and down their timelines, it's a lot of anti-Joe stuff, okay? And the KHive is the most accustomed to going back and forth with them and winning. A lot of them, you will see, they're scared. Here come the KHive. That's right. That's what you need. And I just don't, and you know what? With Joe Biden dragging this out in terms of his decision, you're not going to be able to cultivate the kind of loyalty that Kamala has over the past, 18 months, 19 months now, of building an army of people who are willing to go to bat for her, and she's on the ticket, then all that goodwill extends to Joe Biden. I will be more than happy to be a Biden brigade, I guess, if that's what you want to call it, if Kamala Harris is on the ticket. If she's on the ticket. Otherwise, I ain't got nothing for him like that. But
somebody tell Joe Biden that you need to put Kamala on that ticket so I can give you a piece of my government check. Okay, just do that. Okay.
Can I just say one thing? Kamala Harris brings bodies to the table. There's a difference compared to what other people bring. Even when it came to fundraisers, yeah, maybe Elizabeth Warren maybe been able to raise with high, donors or whatever, but Kamala Harris brought more bodies, 1,400 attendees, and that's more small dollar donations, which actually reflects what we want, grassroots donating, right? Let's look at the Get Up, Stand Up, over 4,000 attendees and 1 million raised. And here's the other thing. It was trending with 10,000 people actually trending it on Twitter. Those are bodies. Those are people who are actually, investing their time. There's people who's willing to be excited if you actually, having a woman of color, particularly Kamala Harris, not a woman of color, but a Black woman on the ticket. Let's be specific. Sorry. Black woman on the ticket. That's level enthusiasm that you just can't get anywhere.
There'll also be organizations that fall in line in a really enthusiastic way. I mean, Higher Heights. To me, it was really frustrating to see that was kind of undercovered. It is huge that Higher Heights came in to support Kamala Harris. This is the largest political online organization that there is. And to me, I'm just, this would be a massive boon for Joe Biden to have behind him as well. So I hope that I have a feeling his team sees that. Hello, Simone. I see the enthusiasm, I say hello to Simone Sanders. Maybe Simone will job, but I'm telling you, to me, I'm knocking on wood. I'm seeing it looking like that. I got to be honest, I'll be pretty I don't want to say blindsided. I'll be pretty shocked if it doesn't happen that way, because is it just me? But every indication is showing you that this is what it is right now, because people have said, we mentioned this last week, a lot of people said, well, vice presidents aren't really consequential. Right, in the past, they really kind of haven't been in a way. This is not that year. This is a totally different ball game. So to me, we're seeing that enthusiasm when we saw it with Hillary when she picked Tim Kaine. No offense to Tim Kaine, but we saw that there was a lack of enthusiasm there. So to me, I'm just saying that we do know that it does make a difference. And when these pundits are saying, "Oh, it doesn't really make that much of a difference,"
well, Maya, can I ask you a quick question? So if that's
Sure.
the case, why are there so many people, particular groups of people, but not that many people, but with a good amount of, I guess, following and a certain check mark? Why would they advocate for an Elizabeth Warren if it's so inconsequential? Or that's the question. If it's so inconsequential, being the fact that we would lose a seat for Massachusetts. So, I have a question.
And maybe
about
to a Republican, which is interesting, because it's your governor gets to appoint who the senator is going to be, and there's a Republican governor in Massachusetts. I'm pretty sure someone will check me, but I'm pretty sure. And they could choose to put another Democrat in, but it's their choice. They can also put a Republican for that seat. So there's some risk in that. And trust me, there's been articles about it saying that won't necessarily happen. I will say this, you already saw the data. All of Elizabeth Warren's voters have said that they would go ahead and back Joe Biden no matter who he picks for vice president. But you do have a group of people that are really enthusiastic for Warren. However, it's also because, and I'm going to say this because I have friends that support Warren, some of them that didn't really pay attention to some of Kamala's policies, and some didn't pay attention to the fact that Warren really borrowed Kamala's policies, took her policies. So to me, that's why they're advocating so hard for it. I do understand when somebody stands their person, We're doing this with our eyes fully open. We do understand the policies inside and out, what she offers, who she brings to the table, what she's capable of. However, for them, they're not seeing, and I will say this, they're not really seeing the risk of who Warren would frustrate. I will just say this, because I have Native friends. I grew up in New Mexico. Some people still do not like that Elizabeth Warren not only took the DNA test, but didn't really properly apologize for what she did. There'll be a host of issues. No one's perfect when picking a VP. However, Kamala, I don't want to say checks all the boxes, but she does. And I think this is just logical now. She's beating it. She's winning in every single poll. By the way, people want this to be over with, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Everyone wants this to be over with.
A lot of people are literally only, I'm just going to be just honest here. A lot of people are just waiting for Joe Biden to pick his VP. Every time he's interviewed, it is about his VP.
Lord.
And the other part, I just want to a lot of people advocate for maybe an Elizabeth Warren because they say that they want somebody who's progressive, but I guess progressive and black does not mix together for some odd reason, even though Kamala Harris is rated the second most progressive senator.
Yeah.
So
wow, Elizabeth Warren is rated number 5. Just throw that out there.
And I will also say again, and this is
number 9.
And this is again, we're here to promote. We're here to promote Kamala, and I'm not trashing Warren, and I'm not doing it at all. But what I'm saying is, as far as what this year is about, there are so many horrible things that happened in the last 3.5 years, last 400 years. But let's just go with a 3.5, right? Let's just start with that. There's going to be so much that literally has to be prosecuted. There are going to have to be people that are held responsible. So it's not as simple as just an economic aspect. There's a legal aspect that kind of comes in. Well, Kamala Harris understands the economic need, and she understands the legal aspect too. We need someone that understands those things intimately. I'm not saying that Warren wouldn't be great with economy, but so will Kamala Harris. And again, vice presidents this is going to be a brand new thing. We don't know what type of how someone's going to define themselves as a vice president. This is going to be new. And I said this like maybe a week ago or 2 weeks ago. We don't know how it's going to be defined there, but the person that is picked will have Joe's ear the entire time. This will be more of a partnership than you've seen in a long time. And this is why we're advocating for someone like Kamala Harris. This is not an ageist thing, but it is nice to have somebody that is a little bit younger. Again, not an ageist person. I think it's some of my favorite people like Maxine Waters, are seniors and crushing it. So this is not.
I love Maxine.
Yeah, so this is not an ageist thing, but we do see what will work the best. And we know that it's Kamala Harris. And it's not just us. Hello, you look online, you're seeing it everywhere. Someone yesterday said it. I don't know if it was Joy Reid or somebody. I think Drew said, are we tired of asking this question? I think Drew said it. Because we're like, why are we still asking? It was Kamala.
I just
all the way down.
feel that it's being drug on too much. And to Reese's point, I feel that if it continues to drag on, then the enthusiasm level, it can die down, especially. So it's just like I just feel like if you drag it on too long, it's just like with the taste of cake. You can't keep eating it and expect that people are just going to accept that, or people are going to still enjoy it. It's getting tiring at this point, and we really need to go ahead and push on to November.
So let me just make one last comment here. One, I agree with everything that you all just said, obviously, especially the dragging on Reese. Whenever you mention that, I want you to know I'm always with you like, thank you. That's for real. I'm tired too. The other thing is we're losing valuable time because with Joe Biden, yeah, I know some key things, the Brady Act, the assault weapons ban. I know about his involvement with SALT 2. All fantastic things, right? ACA work and all that. But this man has been in office for decades. There's other things that I need to dig into deeper. For right now, the key things that he hits on, it's enough to get my vote. I may differ from other people. I'm actually, I'm comfortable with Joe Biden. But again, when the attacks come, you dig what I'm saying? We haven't seen the worst yet, at least from MAGA Twitter. We dealt with Rose Twitter. We handled that with stats, specifically when it comes to Kamala. Now, when it comes to Joe, it would be nice to have some time just to do some digging and some research. Let me read something. Let me pull up some bills or some movements or something where I can get in there.
Right.
Put this out.
Right.
I can counter that and be like, no, this is like, give me some kind of time to get some ammo going, because you're gonna need it. Because online disinformation, people want to act like it wasn't real. That's a real thing, especially in quarantine.
It is.
Well, Drew, are you done with your statement, love?
Well, I'll say this other thing. I'll say this and I'll let you go ahead. You know, like I said, MAGA Twitter is a different animal than Rose Twitter. We haven't seen even the worst of MAGA Twitter yet. Now, with that being said, we thug enough to handle it. I ain't gonna worry about that because I know I got stuff cooking for real. I'm excited. I'm waiting for something. Please, the second there's one particular person in particular, the second he come out of his mouth stupid, I got a whole waiting for him. Anyway, this is for Married Great Again. But again, it would be nice to just know what we set with is in stone. Boom, this decision, Biden Harris. Now we can go ahead and just boom and pump it out. But go ahead, Sid. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I just kind of wanted to jump in on like what you were saying in regards to Joe giving us time. The cool thing is about Joe Biden's campaign is the way that he's kind of encompassed like just the Democratic agenda for the last 10 years. You know what I'm saying? Like for the last, I mean, since Barack Obama came into play, we see that Joe Biden's policies they're not really moving away from, what Hillary Clinton was talking about her agenda in 2016 and what Barack Obama was talking about in 2012. And so it's the platform is kind of like, they don't know if they want to attack Joe Biden, or they don't know if they want to attack the Democrats. So it's easy. It's kind of, in my opinion, it's easy for us to just, keep the focus on the Democratic agenda and not necessarily Joe right now. But I absolutely agree with you that the attacks are to come. We have not yet seen the worst of the worst. So Joe, if y'all watching us, please give us some time, because we, and pick Kamala as your VP so we can get to work. Please. Thank you.
Amen.
Yeah, I differ from you all in my confidence level that Joe will pick Kamala Harris, and I'm a little bit more cynical because it's a no-brainer, and yet I do feel like it seems to me, and it's just this is my cynicism. It does seem like they're looking for a way to not make it Kamala Harris, and Kamala Harris
I don't want to think of it that way
than everybody else. I mean, she's done more events. She's done town halls. I don't know whoever asked you about town halls, how they missed that. Exactly. She's done calls. She's done Women's for Lawyers. She's done several fundraisers. She's brought the cool factor. I mean, nobody makes a more persuasive case for Joe Biden than Kamala Harris. I mean, we've seen it in the interviews. Even when she's asked about the VP question, she always pivots and makes a very, very strong argument for Joe. I say that not to say be discouraged. I say that to say be vigilant. And I say that to say that the onus is on us to not get complacent, regardless. It doesn't matter if Chris Cillizza, I think this is the 12th or 11th week that he's put Kamala Harris at number one. It doesn't matter that the polling says that Kamala Harris is the favorite choice. And all of the June polling that's come out, it doesn't matter that the polling says 70% of people would be more enthusiastic by a woman of color. Check that, because people could try to be funny and pick a woman of color that's not a Black woman. So there are a lot of ways, and we know that Democrats know how to snatch defeat from the jaws of victory. And so we have to stay vigilant. We have to continue to make the case for why it needs to be Kamala specifically. And I said in one of my videos earlier this week, I do believe, and again, maybe you can call me cynical, I will stipulate to that up front, that dangling 6 or more Black women has had the effect, whether it's intended or not, I'll give them that bone, maybe it's not intended, of dividing the ability to galvanize behind one specific person. Even though some of these people are a complete long shot, some of these people aren't even being vetted any longer, but it does give the Biden campaign, if they want to be too cute by half, the ability to say, well, this Kamala doesn't have the overwhelming, she has 20%. Yeah, but when you add up all the Black women, it's 48%. But when you dangle 6 Black women, it's gonna be a little bit more divided. You're not seriously considering 6 Black women, but it still keeps people divided, not divided in terms of not being willing to support Kamala, because Kamala has only 12% of people say that she would not be an acceptable choice. That's compared to Elizabeth Warren, where 19 people say that. And so all I'm saying is that we have to continue to be very vocal about our choice. We have to continue to be very forceful about our voice. I know that I've seen people respond to these emails, these polls that Joe Biden sends out and say it needs to be Kamala. People tag the campaign and say it needs to be Kamala. It's to the extent that any of that makes a difference, let's do it. It might not. It might not. I've heard people say, oh, I think that when Kamala dropped out, she made a deal to be vice president. She did not. So that's don't get complacent. Don't get comfortable and say, oh, I think she already came to this agreement last year. That did not happen. I can't say that 100% certainty, but I can say I have absolutely no reason to believe that. There's zero evidence for that being the case. Okay. So all I'm saying is that we have to continue to do what we're doing. We cannot take it for granted, because when has anybody in the history of this motherfucking country ever done right by a Black woman?
Never. I can't think of it. I mean, right now, every chance they get, they undermine Black women. So it's a sad situation. Literally, they keep y'all at the bottom of the barrel for some unknown reason, knowing that you guys make up the base of this nation. This was built on y'all. Black women have more entrepreneurship.
We overcome it, not because somebody was altruistic, not because we had a fairy godmother, but because we put our foot on the gas, because we demanded it. That's how Black women have made progress, not through somebody acquiescing. It's through demands. And so that's just the point that I want to underscore. I know a lot of people are cynical. Somebody told me today, oh, I'm going to start 100 million man march against Reese when Joe Biden doesn't pick Kamala. That's fine. That doesn't have anything to do with me. If he doesn't pick her after all that we have done, that's not on my conscience. That's not on me. I'm not accountable for that. But I can tell you what's not going to happen. This whole season is not going to go by and we said, oh, well, we thought it was going to be her, so we didn't say anything. That's just the point that I want to make. If you believe that it's her, that's great, but still keep pressing on Joe and his campaign people to make the right decision, because like I said, and like Kenny agreed, everybody agrees, nobody ever does right by Black woman without having their arm twisted to do it. And I think that will include Joe, because it could have been announced 2-3 months ago if it weren't all this arm twisted. We didn't need 200 women to write an article to the Washington Post. You shouldn't need polling after polling, all that kind of stuff. But here we are. And so if we have to twist some arms, if we have to raise some hell, then let's damn continue to do it.
Amen. Like, Joe, please, for the life of you, do not fall into what Hillary Clinton made a mistake in 2016. Listen to the voters. The voters matter. Black votes matter. Black lives matter, and Black women matter.
And that's on that, which is interesting because I actually like Tim Kaine as a person and not as the VP.
No, he's a great person. He just don't bring the excitement.
It's gonna clear that up. That's my point. Like, as a second senator, he's a good senator. Like, dude, was all right. Yeah. But he was just in a bad spot. Like, you ever somebody push you in a bad spot? You're like, damn, where y'all coming from? But anyway,
it's just like, I think Elizabeth Warren's a great senator too. That's what she needs to say in the Senate.
No cap. Like, there's no disputing it at all. Exactly. But
one other thing, sorry if I could just jump in. Black women are not interchangeable. And so we can't just sit up here, and it's no shade. And I think that's part of the problem, that people don't want to pick a side because they feel like, oh, I'm shading this Black woman if I say pick this person. It's not shady. If you want to put in Michael Jordan or you know, a bench player, I don't even know who was the bench people on the Bulls, to be honest, because you have Michael Jordan. But wouldn't you go with Michael Jordan? Would you not go with championship MVP Michael Jordan? Would you not go with championship MVP LeBron James? Don't you put your best person forward? That's not a shade. That's not to say that Scottie Pippen wasn't great. That's not to say that Dennis Rodman wasn't great. But you go with your MVP. You go with the person who has delivered time and time again. I don't understand why that's a controversial thing. Don't you go with the person who has made history time and time again? Don't you go with the highest ranking Black woman in the entire country? Only the second Black senator out of over 1,900 people who have ever served in the Senate. Only 2 of them have been Black. 0.1% has been Black. Don't you go with that person?
I have a real question. I know we're probably extending on time, Lord Jesus. I know we just dragging it. Okay, now with vice presidents, don't they have a important job in the Senate? And Kamala Harris is being the fact that she's introduced all of these bills that she's talked about. She didn't just, put it in a PDF, as you said, Reese. She put it in policy, and she's already laid them out. Wouldn't it be important for her to be literally a part of that in order to making sure that those bills get passed, those crucial bills that can actually affect a lot of people, especially right now with coronavirus? Like it's just like, what?
You have a person who doesn't have a learning curve. You have a person that doesn't have to be brought up to speed with the nation's issues. She's on the Senate Intelligence Committee. Nobody is more, in terms of the field, is more abreast of what's happening in terms of our nation's security, our national security and intelligence than Kamala Harris. Nobody has offered better solutions. And anybody, I'd be more than willing to debate that on the COVID response in terms of the racial and ethnic disparities, in terms of the corona, in terms of the healthcare issues, in terms of the environmental issues. I can go on down the list. Nobody has more credentials and as broad of a field and the depth in terms of each of those fields than Kamala Harris. So I don't understand why it's even remotely controversial or even a question as to why it wouldn't unequivocally and overwhelmingly be Kamala Harris. That's not just because we're live with the KHive, that's just an objective evaluation of the credentials. And so it is what it is. And so that's where a lot of bit of my cynicism comes in. But all I'm saying is it's no shade to anybody. And if I can say this, if I wanted to be shady, I could be very shady. I have many, many, many things on each person that I can really lay out there and be like, this is why this person don't need to be the person. But I don't do that, particularly as it relates to Black women. But it's not shady to pick a side. It's definitely not shady to put MJ on the court. You got 5 seconds and you need to hit that 3-pointer for the championship. It's not shady to put Michael Jordan on the case. Okay, that's just common sense. You get Jordan the ball with 5 seconds left on the clock for the championship shot.
Right, Michael Jordan.
Or to be equal for women, you put Serena Williams on the court to go up against Maria Sharapova. She done beat her every time. That's what you do. You go and you get Serena. You get the champ. You get the greatest. Period.
So
I just want to make one quick little blurb because it's live. I'm live tweeting over here, y'all. Shout out to Talib Kweli. I know he just tweeted me, and I just invited him to come up in here and learn him something. So I know there's some controversy going on my timeline right now. So Talib, honey, if you in here, hey, I'm glad you showed up. But if not, you got the link, and I'm gonna be blowing you up.
Word up. Look, you want Michael Jordan on the court. You want him taking a shot in the last 5 seconds. You don't give the ball to Ron Harper. I give you that. That's a good point. All right. And that's no shade to Ron Harper. Ron Harper I like Ron Harper. But
Thank you, Drew. I'm glad somebody knew somebody other than Jordan. I just know Jordan. I'm sorry.
Yeah, they had a good saying there. Ron Harper on that team. Tony Kukoc was on. I'm talking about 95. Steve Kerr, who's the head coach of the Warriors, he was on that team. I would actually be comfortable with Steve Kerr taking the last shot. But not if Mike is on the court. But anyway, moving on. That's another episode of Live with the KHive. Thank y'all so much for joining us and sticking with us. And all that, I am your host, Drew Comments. Been chilling here all day long with Maya Contreras. The Sydney A. I gotta keep please say the shot. We got Kenny in his house, and also, as always, Black Woman Views Reese. And we are is out. You feel me?
Wait, I just want to say one more thing because somebody mentioned Simone Biles. Shout out to CoverGirl, Vogue CoverGirl Simone Biles. Yes. If you're looking for that Olympic gold medal performance, you put Simone Biles on the floor routine. And that's it. So we will see y'all next week, which is Kamala Harris, in case you didn't make the connection yet.
Of course, as it is every week.
If you want a good gymnast, you go to UCLA. You don't go to Nebraska.
Go Bruins. Go Bruins. I don't know if you
got gymnastics program in the
I'm a USC Trojan at my heart because I could get in, but it's okay because the ACT don't exist no more. Because shout out to y'all. But yeah,
I'm talking about gymnastics.
Let's go.
No other programs mess with UCLA gymnastics. Women's gymnastics. Straight up. Anyway, that's us. We out.
Bye, y'all.